Today's webinar is on the chapter goals program in Bni Connect. So one of the great things about the chapter goals program, again, is that you can follow through with your goals throughout the year. And one of the things that, now, by the way, I am a Bni member. I've been a Bni member since 2002. I'm also a director consultant. I was an area director consultant for a while, all before kind of taking over the support department for Bni Connect. But I've been in just about every leadership team position that there is. President, vice president, I've been the education coordinator, I've been on the growth coordinator, and all sorts of things. One of the things about BNI is that there's very few of us that do BNI as a full-time profession. Most of us have other jobs that we're doing throughout the day and throughout the year. And, we go to our BNI meeting once a week and we do our one-to-ones and we, have our referrals and things like that. But, 95% of the time, or maybe 90% of the time, we're thinking about our own businesses. And that's okay. That's what we're in business for. But when it comes to being on the leadership team, we can sometimes lose sight or lose track of all the things that we wanted to accomplish in the chapter. Excuse me. For example, growing the chapter. You start out your term, you're like, yeah, we're at 35 people and we want to get to 45 people. Then all of a sudden a month goes by or 2 months goes by or 3 months goes by. And oh yeah, I meant to schedule that visitors day, but I never really got around to it. So aside from keeping track of the numbers and keeping them in front of you the whole time, the other thing that this goals program allows us to do is it helps us to keep track of our activities. So we're essentially planning out our calendar for the year of the various things that we want to do in our chapter. So I just wanted to say that we do have, I believe, Srinivas Ayar, who's on the call with us today. Just wanted to say hi. Just so you guys know, we are a global organization from the, the Secunderabad region in India, who's also the MSP trainer. So thank you so much for being here. We have people from all over the world on the call with us today, so I appreciate you sharing. All right, so to get to the goals program, we are going to have to dive a little bit deeper into Bni Connect. We're going to have to go beyond the home screen here. So to do that, we're going to use these little menus up along the top. We have network operations, reports, tools, and admin. Most of our day-to-day activity when we're working in Bni Connect, aside from our member stuff, which is on the home page, but from a leadership team perspective, most of the stuff that we're going to find is going to be under operations. Operations is where we go to do any kind of a data input. Reports are always read only, so you'll only ever be able to get information back out of Bni Connect using the reports. But in order to use the goals program, we're going to have to go to operations. So let's go to operations. And under operations, we'll see a whole bunch of stuff from managing visitors to the chapter management to member management to creating an email. What we're going to be working on today, though, is the goals program. So we have here the fourth item down is manage goals. Now, if you are on the leadership team, you should be able to play along at home. So you should be able to utilize the same functionality. If you are not currently on the leadership team, let's say that you may be an incoming president or vice president or secretary treasurer, but you're not on the leadership team yet, you probably won't have access to enter the chapter goals. You'll get that access if and when you become a part of the leadership team. In the meantime, though, usually everybody in the chapter has access to the view chapter goals. So if your chapter has established goals, you should be able to follow along with that. But only the leadership team, usually again the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, the director consultant of the chapter, can use the enter chapter goals. So let's go ahead and click on enter chapter goals and see what this is all about. All right, so the very first screen we get is we're going to be asked for a date, a long-term vision, and a mission statement. Now, the way the chapter goals work is you can enter your chapter goals for any time period you want to. You can go back in time if you want to. You can go forward in time if you want to. You can do this for 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever you'd like to do. However, we can only work in 6-month increments. Now, by default, it's going to show you the next 6-month BNI period as you probably know, the BNI period always goes from April to October, then October back to April. So that's our 6-month kind of fiscal year, so to speak, the BNI fiscal year. You are not locked into only working on those 6-month periods. You can choose any 6-month period you'd like to. You just need to drop down the calendar and choose which 6-month, which month you would like to start with, and it will show you 6 months from that month. So I'm going to go ahead and choose June. Since we're in June right now, I'm going to start out with June. Now, the next thing we have to do is come up with a long-term vision. Now, the long-term vision and the mission statement are things that we only have to do once. We're kind of defining our chapter, and anybody that's ever been to a business retreat or a corporate summit, things like that, you'll be familiar with this process. But the long-term vision is kind of where do we want to get to, and the mission statement is what's going to be our guiding principles along the way of getting there. So again, the long-term vision is you put your binoculars on and say, this is where I want to get to. Mission statement is going to be kind of what kind of vehicle are you going to drive to get there. So in this chapter, I'm working with the Antarctica Shiver region, the Bni chapter. This is just one of my test chapters in our test area of BNI Connect. But we came up with the long-term vision. So I sat down with the penguins and the polar bears, and we said that our long-term vision is to grow the chapter to be the largest chapter in the entire continent. In addition, we wish to be the #1 chapter in closed business and referrals within a 200-mile radius. So you'll notice that we didn't necessarily put in numbers, and that's okay. If you'd like to put in numbers, you can. The numbers part of it's really going to come when we start working kind of in the spreadsheet format. This is more of a 50,000-foot overview as to where you want to get to. So I kept it a little bit vague. We want to be the largest chapter. We want to be the #1 in closed business, things like that, as opposed to saying we want to be a chapter of 53 members and we want to pass $6,425,000 in business. But again, this is at your discretion. The second one is the mission statement. And again, this is kind of be our guiding principles. How are we going to get there? What kind of culture are we going to create in our chapter? Here in the Bni chapter, we want to help members increase their business through a structured, positive, and professional word-of-mouth program that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with qualified business professionals. So that is our mission statement. So once you have those, the next part that we're going to work on, and again, you don't have to change those every time you come in here, but you will be reminded of them. These are kind of the set it and forget it. You really only have to set it once. When you're ready, click the Go button. This will generate our kind of spreadsheet, so to speak, starting with, for me, June of 2016. And you'll see it generated a 6-month spreadsheet. We have from June through October. And what we'll see here is the different, we call them the chapter success drivers, the chapter success drivers. Now, these are going to be, what are the things that we're measuring in order to consider ourselves a successful chapter? That's what the chapter success drivers are. And in BNI Connect, what we're measuring is attendance percentage, total number of one-to-ones, CEUs, visitors, new memberships, number of members in the chapter, number of referrals, and thank you for closed business. So those are all the different success drivers. And what we're going to need to do is to come up with a number, because SMART goals need to be, in order to be held accountable, we have to be able to measure the goals. So we're going to come up with where we're going to be with those numbers for the next 6 months. Let's see. Srinivas says, hi, I'm the current president and my calendar shows from October. That is when my team would have ended. So if you go back, Srinivas or anybody else that might be experiencing this, make sure that you, in the start month and year, drop down the calendar and make sure you go backwards or click the This Month button. and that will generate the spreadsheet from any start month you want to. If you'd like to go back and use this to plan from April, you're welcome to do that as well. And then I can go ahead and click go, and it will create it from the month of June onwards for me. Did that help? You got it? Awesome. Awesome. Cool. So for each one of these success drivers, we're going to do two different things. First, we're going to come up with a goal number. Again, that's that measurable, attainable number. The second thing we're going to do is come up with a mechanism. Now, what the mechanisms are different activities that we can perform in our chapter in order to accomplish our goals. As I mentioned before, one of the things that we tend to get caught up in when it comes to BNI and being on the leadership team is we get caught up in our own lives. And again, that's okay. What this is meant to do is to say, okay, by the way, in August, we said we were going to do the BNI game. So this reminds us to accomplish those things. Before I get started on entering some of the goals into the system and explaining what they are, there is just one thing at the top of the form here I wanted to point out, and that is when we're entering our goals, it's going to ask us either, are we entering our goals on a per chapter basis or on a per member basis? What this really means is, are you going to be using a really big number, or are you going to use a small number, and we'll calculate out the results for you? Most people just come up with a chapter goal. However, if you'd like to use the per member goal, please keep in mind that any of the goals that you put in, what's going to happen is when we go to review our goals and we keep track of them later, it's going to calculate them out by what your anticipated number of members is. Okay, so it's going to end up combining your number of members goal with whatever, let's say, number of referrals and multiplying that out. So the per chapter goals gives you a little bit more flexibility and control. The other thing I'm going to say is don't get caught up in the minutia. It's better to get some goals down on paper, even if you have to go back and adjust them later, than to argue over little tiny things. Just to give you an example, let's go ahead and just start. Let's look at the attendance percentage, for example. This is the very first. This is probably the easiest goal to come up with because most of the time our target goal for attendance is going to be 100%. That's kind of where we want to get to with our chapter, is that everybody's there every week, because after all, as Dr. Meisner says, you can't get a haircut over the phone. So let's say that I know that right now we're getting close to the end of this month, and I know in Antarctica we're having a bit of an attendance problem, and I know our attendance is pretty low right now. We're at about 86 or so % attendance. Well, wouldn't it be great if I could bring that up over the course of the next 6 months to, let's say, like 96%. I want to bring it up by 10 percentage points. Not quite at 100 yet, but let me get it up to 96. So I almost always, I begin with the end in mind. So we know where we are now, right? So I know what today's figures are, and I know where I want to get to in 6 months. So I know that we're at about 86% now, and I know I want to get to 96%. So the easiest thing to do from here is to just kind of figure out how many you need per month to get there. So I know this is 10 over a 6-month period. So 88, 90, 92, 94, and that'll bring us to 6. So if we can steadily increase by 2 percentage points every month, we will hit our goal. Now, when I talk about getting caught up in the minutia, what I mean is that this is a very simplistic view of goals. You can get incredibly more complicated with this if you want to. For example, we know that in Antarctica, we have a very short summer, usually just August and September, and we know that a lot of people are going to be taking vacations and going to the Antarctic beaches, maybe do some fishing. So attendance tends to drop. So I know that perhaps this is really going to be more staying steady at maybe 86, 88%, and the same thing. Maybe it's even going to dip a little bit worse in September. But then by October, we know we're going to try to make a big push and bring it up a little bit further in order to get to our 96% goal. You can complicate it that way if you'd like to, and analyze different trends in your chapter, but I would say keep it simple. It's better to have something down on paper than to spend all that time and end up with nothing. By the way, you can always go back and change these later. So once we save them, they'll be saved in the system, but if you're way off, let's say that we get to September and we've actually tanked, we're at like 72% attendance, and we know we're never going to climb up to 96, I can go back and readjust these, and maybe my goal for October and November is going to be back up into the 80% mark. All right, so you can go back and adjust them later. So we came up with our goal numbers. Now let's look at mechanisms. And what are mechanisms? Mechanisms are things that you can do in order to basically motivate your chapter to achieve those goals. And this could be just about anything. It could be implementing a policy, or it could be performing an education moment on a certain topic. It could be playing the Bni game. It could be really just about anything. So let's just come up with something. So let's say that next month, one of the things that I want to do is make sure that our vice president is doing the control letters. I know that's something that our chapter has been lackadaisical with, is sending out the control letters when somebody has missed 1, 2, 3, 4 meetings. We need to get back on that. So I want to work with the vice president and make sure that they are sending out their control letters. And we can come up with a second mechanism if I want to, and maybe we need to put in here that the educational coordinator will do a moment on control letters. And that way, the members are expecting the control letters if they end up being absent a couple of times without a substitute. All right, and then maybe we're going to get into August, and we know it's vacation month. So we want to emphasize, do a educational moment on the importance of a substitute. Right? So that can be something that we talk about, and maybe we are going to do a bring your substitute day. Almost like a visitor day, but bring your sub day, and that way your sub won't be anxious about coming and replacing you at the meeting, right? And we can come up with a whole bunch of these, and that's the idea, is that you want to come up with these things that you're going to build on and progress throughout that leadership team term. Now, if you're looking for ideas, there are a bunch of great resources. There's the podcasts. There is, of course, your director consultant. Your director consultant, this would be a great activity to do with your director consultant, to sit down with them and find out some other ideas on how to build and grow the chapter. There's also this button up here. It says Chapter Goal Guide. And if you click on Chapter Goal Guide, this will give you some ideas. Now, not a ton of them, just a couple of ideas on each one of those chapter success drivers to help you kind of get started with them. So we have some things here like the education on the importance of why, making sure we're sending out the control letters, acknowledging people for perfect attendance monthly. I think that's a great thing to do. So why don't I'm just going to highlight this and copy it and go back and paste this in. And you know what? I want to start that this month. So I'm going to put in that we're going to acknowledge people starting this month for perfect attendance. And hopefully we'll continue that through the entire rest of the term. All right, so you get the idea with that. Now, whenever you start doing things, if you're doing this, you're sitting down with your leadership team and you're coming up with these and you're typing them directly into the computer, make sure that every once in a while, just like you would if you were working on a Word document or an Excel document or something like that, go to the bottom and click the Save button. BNI Connect does have a 30-minute timeout, so if you are sitting there, you get caught up in conversation and you don't return to this for 30 minutes, you will be logged out and you will have lost all of your changes up until that point. So do be sure to go and click the save button every now and again. The other thing is you don't have to do these in order. As a matter of fact, I recommend that you don't do them in order. Attendance is nice and easy, but really the next number one goal that we have to keep in mind is how big do we want our chapter to grow? How much do we want to grow our chapter? We know that every time we double the chapter, we are tripling the number of referrals. So what we want to do is to grow to a decent size. So let's go down and take a look at the number of members in chapter. And that's really what I would say is the second thing that you want to fill out is the number of members in chapter. And once again, I like to start where we are and figure out where we want to get to. So I know right now that in our chapter, we have 24 members currently. And with only a couple of days left in the month, I'm pretty sure we're going to stay at this many members until July. Now, I know, let's say I would like to, towards the end of this, I'd like to add 10 new members over the next 6 months. So I want to grow to 34 members by the end of really this year. So I know where we are, I know where we're going. So how many members do we need to reach each month in order to achieve that goal? So that's 10 over the next really 5 months. That's 26, 28, 30. Oops. Hit the wrong button. 26, 28, 30, 32, and 34. So we're pretty much growing by about 2 members per month steadily over that time. And again, you can make this more complicated. Maybe you're going to grow by, 1 a month. So 25, 26, 27, but then you're going to have a big Visitors Day here. So, you're going to grow by quite a bit during that Visitors Day. You're going to get 6 new members. So again, you can complicate this or you can keep it nice and simple. And then, of course, what we need to do is to come up with some mechanisms to support that. So as I said, we're going to kind of grow by 1, but we're going to have a Visitor Day in September in order to support that one batch of rapid growth, which means that about 2 months before that, we need to announce the Visitor Day. And we need to make sure that we are inviting. And maybe this month we want to make sure that we announce our chapter goal. Right? So we come up with our process of the things that we're going to do. And of course, there is the chapter goal guide at the top of the screen here where you can look for some ideas on member growth. All right, so now that we have the number of member in chapter, the next thing that we can come up with fairly easily is that we need to bring in new members in order to increase our number of members in the chapter. So we kind of know that if we're going to be growing by, let's say 2 per month, let me put this back to a nice easy number, then we need 2 new members per month, right? And the answer to that is sort of. And the reason I say that is that if we just go by 2, more than likely we're not going to hit our goal. And the reason for that is that just about every chapter out there has some level of attrition, meaning that people are going to leave your chapter, and there's kind of nothing you can do about that. It would be nice to have 100% retention, but it's just not realistic. And I can tell you that the average chapter loses about 1 member per month. And a lot of times it's for good reasons. I can tell you my chapter, we had a person in our group that just resigned last week. And I didn't see this one coming. I'll be completely honest with you. He's doing really, really well in the chapter. He's a professional, composting farm. and they were getting tons of referrals, but what happened is that their company did a reorganization, and he was now becoming a manager, could no longer come to the meetings in the sales capacity, and they hadn't rehired a salesperson yet. So, people just, they leave, they get promoted, they have kids, they, have to move out of town, whatever it might be. So really, to account for attrition, which is about 1 member per month, we really need to kind of overshoot this. In order to grow by 2 members per month, what we really need is 3 members per month in order to grow by 2. And again, we can fill out our mechanisms, work on, let's say, the visitor orientation process or other things. And what drives new memberships? What drives new members is visitors. In order to have new members, we need visitors to the chapter. And here's where this is going to be a little bit more kind of personal to your chapter. And what you kind of need to look at is your conversion ratio. In other words, how many visitors show up at your chapter versus how many new members are a result of those visitors. And that could be anywhere from, let's say a 50% conversion rate, meaning 1 in every 2 members become, or 1 in every 2 visitors become a member, anywhere to, let's say, a 10% conversion ratio where 1 in every 10 visitors becomes a new member. That's something that you're going to have to look at in your own personal chapter. But let's just say that, right now we're at a 33% conversion rate, which means that we need about 3 visitors for every new member. So that means that in order to gain 3 members, we're going to need about 9 visitors per month. Now, the next group of these is going to be the one-to-ones, the CEUs, and the referrals. And essentially, my opinion of these ones is that, we, in our chapter, in our region, the way we do this is that we call it the power of 1. And what we look for is for every member to produce 1 referral per week, 1 one-to-one per week, and 1 CEU per week. That is our goal as every single member of our chapter, and we try to do that on a weekly basis. So that makes this part, for us anyway, pretty easy. I just need to take the number of members really and multiply that by 4, and I will have our number of referrals. So we have 98 here, and then we're adding 2. So we have 104, is that it? Or 106, and then 114, 122, oh, I'm sorry, 120, 128, and 136. That's where I messed up. 104, 112, 120, 128, 136. So that will be our target number of referrals per month, and then I will just take that and do the same thing for number of one-to-ones as well as CEUs. And then finally, we have our thank you for closed business. Now, for this one, what I would do is to take your target thank you for closed business over the course of a year. For example, let's say that you want to be a $1 million chapter. In order to be a $1 million chapter, you need to pass about $100,000 every month, give or take a few $1,000. So I'm going to just put in, keep this again nice and simple, and I want to make sure that we do $100,000 per month in closed business in order to reach our goal of $1 million this year. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Now, the next thing we can do is we can go back and now start reviewing our goals. So to do that, we're going to go back to the Operations menu, and under the Goals program, under Manage Goals, we're going to, instead of entering the goals, we're going to take a look at View Chapter Goals. And once again, I choose the 6-month period. By default, it's going to show me the current 6-month period that we are in. And we can see what it's doing is it's putting in an actual. So it also tells us what our mechanisms are or were, so we can keep track of those. And it's keeping track of the percentage and the number of one-to-ones and CEUs and things like that. So this was just a test. So let me show you how this actually works. I'm going to switch to a live chapter. Now this one particular region never fails me. I know 100% of their chapters do these chapter goals. It's one of their reasons for their incredible success in the region. So I'm just going to pick a random chapter here, the Bni Eagles Chapter. And what we can see here, this is a real chapter. We can see that their long-term vision, Bni Eagles will have 50% of its members E-squared, which is an education program they have down there. An educated team all rowing in the same direction will ensure more quality referrals. They want to become a powerful team to promote unity, to educate current members. Their mission statement is their focus is to stand up with 222. We don't want to survive, we want to thrive. We can see that their attendance goals have been 100% and they're at 98 and 95. Not too shabby. Looking for 441 to ones and they hit 343. You can see their CEUs, they're closing in on those, their number of visitors. Looks like they might have messed this number up, but like they had 10.4 visitors, they're looking for 2. They got 2 visitors per month. They can see their number of memberships. Right now they're a 55 member chapter. And their goal is 55 members. They're currently at 48. And it looks like they're looking to do, about $700,000 per month. And so far they've hit 588, 382, and 670. So all in all, they are doing pretty well. All right, so we are at the bottom of the hour. We're actually a couple of minutes over the bottom of the hour, so I just want to say to everybody, thank you guys so much for being here today and for joining me to review the Chapter Goals program. What I'd like to do is to open this up for any questions. If anybody has any questions whatsoever, I'd love to answer those now. I know Leslie said she lost audio. I'm still getting feedback on my microphone. It seems to be working from here. I don't know if anybody else is having an issue. Oh, Kurt says he seems to be okay. And Srinivas says she can still hear there, and great webinar. So just a reminder, this is being recorded. Oh, hold on, we do have a question. Kurt says, where can I find attendance percentage? So attendance percentage is, it really only calculates that number there in that particular report. There are a couple of reports. So if I go to the reports section, there are a couple of reports that you can use to calculate the attendance percentage, one of which is just really the Summary Palms report. You can calculate it from the Summary Palms report, but there's also the chapter traffic lights, and the chapter traffic lights can help you with that as well. The thing is that the chapter traffic lights is going to tell you what your absenteeism, which is, again, the reverse of attendance. So this is telling you that they have a 4% absenteeism over the last 6 months, which means that it's really 95.5. So it's not 100% the same thing, but that can give you a starting point fairly easily. Does that help, Kurt? Excellent. Srinivas says, can we print this goals sheet? So there's two things. Number one, if you go into the handouts section here in the GoToWebinar software, I gave you guys a blank chapter goals sheet. And what that is just very simply I exported it out to Excel and gave you a way. So this is actually what it looks like. Let me open it up real quick and I'll show you. So it's just really all of those mechanisms broken out into an Excel spreadsheet for the 6-month period. Now, if you'd like to, if you haven't entered your goals out yet, what you can always do is go back to the operations menu. And if you click on the view goals, and Let me go to a chapter that I don't think has any goals set up. I'm just kind of randomly choosing one here. So if I go to view chapter goals, if I don't have any goals set up yet, what you can do is export this sheet. And from here, you can pretty much make a printout for it that you can use to, some people might find it's easier to do these goals offline, write them in, and then bring them back and put them into BNI Connect. So does that help? You can also just print it from here as well. Just click the print button. All right, does that help, Srinivas? Awesome, awesome. All right, so as I mentioned, this is being recorded. A couple of places you can find it. You can always find it by clicking on this question mark here in the upper right-hand corner of BNI Connect. If you click this question mark, it will take you to the support site. Click on live and recorded webinars. A good referral for me is to please let people know about these webinars and send them to sign up for one of the webinars. We're just about done with our June series, but our July series is all listed and taking reservations. So great referral for me is to please have someone sign up for one of the webinars. And if I go back, you can see the recordings as well. All the recordings are month by month, and you can review either today's webinar or any of them. David said, can you email me a list of chapter names other directors have used? David, can you shoot me an email on that? It would depend on what you have access to. I mean, I know you're an executive director. However, you wouldn't necessarily have access to other people's regions. That said, Tom Fleming said that I'm welcome to use his chapters as examples anytime. I'd be happy to print out one or two of them and send them over to you so you have something to work with or to go forward with. But you wouldn't have direct access to them. Does that make sense? So, but just shoot me an email or give me a call later this afternoon or tomorrow or something, and we can talk through it. All right, do we have any other questions? All right, if there's no other questions, I will look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. In the meantime, happy connecting.